Alright, hello everybody, Friendly Red here, back once again with another roundup of games on my radar. We are now halfway through the halfway year of the 2020s, and June's got quite a lot of gaming related goodies within. There's the usual brand new game releases, but also lots of exciting updates and additions to already released games, the E3 gaming showcases happening this month, and of course, brand new video game console hardware releasing, in the form of the Nintendo Switch 2. There's plenty to go over, so let's get right into it. But not before throwing out the usual disclaimer. Please keep in mind that release dates are always subject to change, and what's presented in this video may be out of date by the time it is posted. Okay, for real this time. Here are the releases I'm looking forward to in June of 2025. Nintendo gets first dibs on the discussion docket this month, as on Thursday, June 5th, the Nintendo Switch 2 finally releases. Now, I've already given my personal thoughts on the console, and lots of the surrounding details in my Red's Ramblings video I did back when the Switch 2 Direct aired in early April, so I feel as though I don't really need to say too much here, other than confirming that I will indeed be getting a Switch 2 at launch, and plan to do plenty of coverage on it, both the hardware itself, and any of the games I pick up alongside the system when it launches. Speaking of games though, there's plenty launching alongside the system on that same day, and a good few games I'm interested in getting. Obviously, Mario Kart World is the big one, and will be included with my unit, as I was able to pre-order the bundle that comes with the download code for the game. I'm also looking to get DELTARUNE Chapters 1 through 4, which launches the same day as Switch 2, in addition to being available on PS4, PS5, and PC. DELTARUNE acts as the parallel story/game to Undertale, which itself is a legendary game that I and many others absolutely adore. The first two chapters of DELTARUNE have been available for free for the past few years, but now with chapters 3 and 4 releasing, the game will finally require a purchase. Thankfully, the fee is a one and done kind of deal, as future chapters that release won't require any more money, and instead be released as free updates to the game. For those who don't know, both Undertale and DELTARUNE are turn-based RPGs, full of great music, characters, humor, and especially story. And I'm excited to see how the narrative of DELTARUNE continues, as chapter 2 ended on, quite the interesting sequence of events, we'll say. I won't go into details to avoid spoilers here, but needless to say, if you liked Undertale, let's be real, you've already probably played chapters 1 and 2 of DELTARUNE, and we'll be playing the new chapters here once they've released. If you've yet to play DELTARUNE, or its parallel story found in Undertale, they both get nothing but the highest marks and recommendations from me. As I said before, they're both fantastic experiences to be had, and I think any RPG fan would get some enjoyment out of them. Moving right along from DELTARUNE, the Bravely Default HD Remaster for Switch 2 is another game I'm eyeing to pick up for the system, and wouldn't you know, it's another turn-based RPG. Although, while the gameplay genre may be the same as DELTARUNE, it's quite a different game from it, being focused more so on traditional fantasy RPG and JRPG tropes and gameplay, while DELTARUNE very much is doing its own thing. I never actually played the 3DS entries in the series, those being the original Bravely Default and Bravely Second in Layer, but I did play Bravely Default 2 when it launched on Switch, and quite enjoyed my time with it. For anyone who yearns for a more traditional, turn-based fantasy JRPG, or more specifically, a modern-day Final Fantasy-like game that has those elements, look no further than Bravely Default. It'll be here for the launch of the new Nintendo system, and should make for the de facto JRPG on the system for a bit, disregarding any backwards compatible titles from Switch 1 that could fit into that mold, I guess. Rounding out our launch day RPG discussions, we also have Rune Factory, Guardians of Azuma hitting Switch 2 on its launch day, though it's also releasing on the original Switch and PC too. I actually first experienced this series when Rune Factory 5 released back on the original Switch in 2022, and I enjoyed what I did play of it, but it was a game I eventually put down. Now, the actual gameplay or contents therein weren't really what drove me away from the game, but rather its technical state on the Switch, as it was a game that was riddled with performance issues, bugs, and was overall just somewhat of a hassle to play and enjoy fully on its original platform, at least for me. Thankfully, it eventually came to PC, which solved many of these issues, though I never really went back to it. This leads us to the new title here, Guardians of Azuma. While not quite the next mainline entry in the series, Guardians of Azuma does seem to be stepping things up quite a bit, with much improved presentation, and hopefully more stable performance on the original Switch, at least compared to how 5 was on that platform. As for the game itself, it looks to retain the mix of farming/life sim plus action RPG that the series has been known for, but with some unique twists present here for this new game, like with the seemingly greatly improved exploration and combat, base and village building mechanics, and some more specialized or potentially one-off gameplay mechanics. For example, we see a brief snippet of an on-rail shooter-looking section in one of the trailers. Regardless of what it may or may not have in store, this new Rune Factory is looking to be quite a promising entry in the series, and even without being the next mainline title, a substantial step up from 5. I think this will make for another great pickup for myself and any other early Switch 2 adopters looking for an expansive RPG to really break in their new system. Lastly, for Switch 2 launch game pickups, I'm also looking at getting Fast Fusion, the newest entry in the Fast series of racing games that began all the way back on the Wii in 2011. While I've not personally played any of the prior entries, they're at least games I knew about and could tell were very high quality sci-fi racing games, taking heavy inspirations from titles like Wipeout and F-Zero, which are also game series I've never actually tried, come to think of it. I suppose 2 out of 3 of those changed with the launch of Switch 2, as I can not only play the latest game in the FAST series here, but also try out what's considered the best F-Zero game in that series with F-Zero GX, which will be available on Switch 2 at launch, courtesy of the Nintendo Switch Online GameCube Nintendo Classics app. Man, racing game fans are absolutely feasting with Switch 2 at launch, what with Mario Kart World, F-Zero GX, and Fast Fusion. New console launches are always an exciting time, and I'm very much looking forward to messing with the new system and playing tons of games on it, both old and new. Between Mario Kart World, GameCube games on Switch 2, the numerous third-party games coming to the system at launch, and all the older Switch 1 games that'll be playable on Switch 2, some with very nice enhancements and upgrades, I think this is going to be a fantastic time. I feel very lucky that I was able to secure a system for launch, and I truly hope anyone else who's interested in the Switch 2 will be able to get one as quickly and as easily as possible. Here's to the next generation of Nintendo. Now that we've gotten the Switch 2 launch talk out of the way, let's move on to the brand new releases for the month that aren't a part of that lineup, starting off with 2 new games for the 17th. Firstly, we have the release of FBC Firebreak, the latest from developer Remedy Entertainment, the masterminds behind games like Alan Wake and Control, which is important to bring up, as this game is set within the same universe. To get really technical here, every game from Alan Wake onwards that they've made is set within the same Remedy-connected universe, though whether or not Quantum Break is officially a part of that is all still a bit muddy. Anyways, yes, FBC Firebreak is our next adventure set within that aforementioned wacky and weird Remedy-verse, and it's very different from pretty much every other game within that continuity, as well as every other game Remedy's ever made. For starters, this is a first-person shooter, compared to the usual third-person, over-the-shoulder camera and shooting you'll usually get with a game made by Remedy. On top of that, Firebreak is a cooperative experience, tasking you and 2 others to brave the ever-changing imperialist floors of the FBC, or Federal Bureau of Control, taking out lots of different adversaries and anomalies along the way. If you haven't played Control, essentially, the FBC is an organization that handles and protects the public from strange, anomalous objects and entities, and attempts to control and contain them within their own offices and strongholds, which themselves are usually quite anomalous. It's all very strange, and leans fully into the weirdness, like a mashup of ideas and concepts you may find within SCP stories, or shows like The Twilight Zone or X-Files, if I had to compare it to anything in particular. As for gameplay, Firebreak will have you traverse different areas of the oldest house, basically what you could consider one of the FBC's main bases, taking on different jobs that will see you go up against all kinds of different anomalous foes. From thrall-like employees, otherworldly alien creatures, and even sentient sticky notes, there should be no shortage of weird and wacky encounters, backed up by some punchy-looking, old-school weaponry, and amazing-looking graphics and environments, courtesy of Remedy's own Northlight engine. As I've stated in the past, I'm usually not one much for multiplayer games, but Firebreak is the kind of multiplayer game I love. Co-op focused, more chill type of experience, with tons of room for silly and memorable moments to be made with the friends you play with, like what you can get out of games like Repo or Helldivers 2. There was a YouTube comment I saw under one of the trailers for Firebreak that basically says it all. Another fine addition to the 3 to 4 dudes about to die horribly genre. And yeah, that's pretty much a perfect descriptor of Firebreak and those other games I just mentioned. I'm very much looking forward to the strange adventures I'll be having with my friends in the oldest house here very soon. It's also worth mentioning that the game will be available day 1 on Xbox Game Pass, so if it looks interesting to you and or your friend group, just know it'll be a very easy game to access and get into. FBC Firebreak will be releasing on Tuesday, June 17th for PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC. On the same day as the fires break within the FBC, we'll also be getting grace with a new Tron game, if you can believe it, with the release of Tron Catalyst. I suppose 2025 marks a bit of a return/revival of the Tron IP, with both this new game releasing, as well as the new film, Ares, in October. As for the gaming side of things, Catalyst looks to deliver a wholly new story set within the art grid, which itself was a wholly new setting introduced in the Tron game that released in 2023. Called Tron Identity. While that game was much more of a narrative-driven, visual novel kind of experience, Catalyst instead offers up some top-down, isometric action and exploration of the art grid, with a mix of melee and ranged combat, as well as on-foot and light cycle exploration of the blue and orange neon-soaked streets. I don't have a lot else to say with this one, other than that this game seems to nail the look of the modern-day Tron series, and I'm looking forward to checking out a proper, separate Tron game. As before this, the only time I ever really got to experience the world of Tron in video games was via Kingdom Hearts. Tron Catalyst will be releasing on Tuesday, June 17th for PS5, Xbox Series consoles, Nintendo Switch, and PC. 2 days after those titles release, June 19th sees the return of an older Atlas title with the launch of Raidou Remastered, The Mystery of the Soulless Army. Attached to the Devil Summoner series, which is a part of the larger Shin Megami Tensei franchise as a whole, this game originally released on the PS2, and is pretty different from both the main SMT games and even the 2 Devil Summoner titles that preceded it. While the main SMT games feature turn-based combat with the devils you can encounter and summon, Raidou instead goes full-on action RPG, with battles taking place in real time, with the protagonist, Raidou Kuzunoha, able to fend off attacking demons with his sword, gun, and summonable demons of his own. Outside of battles, you'll follow Raidou in his daily life as a detective, where you can also use your demon summons to help find new clues and info for your ongoing investigations. Personally, I've never really gotten too invested into the proper SMT games, or any of the side games or spin-offs attached to it, outside of the Persona games. Though those became so popular and much of their own thing, they stopped using the SMT name altogether. So I think it's fair to say at this point, those don't really count. I can't say for certain if Raidou will change that entirely for me, but I think it does intrigue me more than any other SMT game I've looked into. Not only does it offer a very different gameplay focus to any SMT game or Persona title, it also features a pretty cool looking setting and time period, which combined with the demons and abilities I've come to know of the series because of the Persona games I've played, makes for a game that actually offers up something I couldn't really get just playing a Persona title, mainline SMT title, or either of the previous Devil Summoner games that preceded this one. Also, I'm a really big fan of the manga/anime series Bungo Stray Dogs, which also shares a sort of blend of detective shenanigans mixed with supernatural elements that this game does, which may be another reason I'm interested in it. Raidou Remastered, The Mystery of the Soulless Army will be releasing on Thursday, June 19th for PS4, PS5, Xbox Series consoles, Nintendo Switch, Nintendo Switch 2, and PC. Lastly, though not exactly finally, June 26th graces us with the 25th anniversary remaster of System Shock 2, courtesy of Night Dive Studios. The absolute masters of the modern-day remaster scene, and the same team who brought us the excellent remake of the original System Shock in 2023, Night Dive returns once again to deliver a much-deserved remaster of one of the all-time greatest sequels to ever grace the medium. Or so I gather. Much like the original game, I've never actually played System Shock 2. As with the original, it was a bit ahead of my time. Sure, I could have gone and played both the original game and 2's original release at any point during my time with the PC platform, but after playing the remake of the original game, I figured it would be best to wait and see what might be done regarding the sequel. While it is a bit unfortunate System Shock 2 won't be getting the full remake treatment like the first game did, I suppose it also makes a bit of sense that it's not, as it seems like System Shock 2 has held up much better over time than that original from 1994 did, especially when it comes to accessing it on modern-day hardware and being a more approachable and understandable game for new players. As for the game itself, it's looking to offer up everything I would expect from a sequel to System Shock: exploration of a derelict space station somewhere in the depths of the cosmos, with plenty of puzzles to solve, environmental storytelling, inventory management, and no shortage of monsters to blast through with a variety of appropriately futuristic tech and weaponry. Oh, and of course, the return of everyone's favorite murder-happy AI, Shodan, sporting a much more menacing look here than how she looked in the original game, almost looking like a futuristic cyberpunk Gorgon or something. I've mentioned it before in prior discussions, but the remake of System Shock was an absolute blast, and was no doubt one of my absolute favorite games of 2023, so you better believe I'm excited to check out the sequel. Not only do I finally get to experience yet another legendary title that's left its mark in gaming history, I get to experience the best version of it yet, and hopefully more people than ever before will be able to do the same. System Shock 2, 25th Anniversary Remaster, will be releasing on Thursday, June 26th for PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series consoles, Nintendo Switch, and PC. Elaborating further on that whole lastly, but not finally comment, we've got another round of honorable mentions here, much like we did for last month's Red Radar. Like before, there's some games releasing that are sequels to games I've yet to experience yet, so I don't really have as much to say on them as I would normally. Additionally, there's a good amount of ports, updates, and other non-full releases I figure are worth mentioning, but those don't necessarily warrant their own dedicated section, hence why I throw them in here with the honorable mentions. There's a good bit to get into with this section alone, so let's begin. On June 5th, the demo for Raidou will be releasing. This little game serves as the spiritual successor to the Patapon series of action rhythm games, which itself will be returning later this summer, courtesy of Bandai Namco. Like the games that inspired it, Raidou oozes style and charm, and I'm super excited for the full release, and eager to try out this little slice of the game. The demo will be available to download on Steam starting on the 5th, so definitely try it out if it looks like something you'd enjoy. June 10th sees the return of the original Warhammer 40k Space Marine game, with the release of the Mastercrafted edition. Space Marine 2 was a wild success, and drew more people than ever into the grimdark world of 40k, so I suppose it makes sense to give players who may have missed out on that first game the opportunity to see where Captain Titus's journey began, as the original game did release all the way back in 2011. I personally played through the anniversary edition of that original game last year ahead of 2's release, so this remaster isn't really something I'm too interested in myself, but I can see why they're doing it, and I'm glad it will be easier for more people to access and play this game. This remaster will be out for Xbox Series consoles and PC, and on Game Pass upon release as well. The next day, June 11th, developer ShiftUp's debut console outing from last year, Stellar Blade, will finally be coming to PC. An impressive accomplishment from a previously mobile-only developer, Stellar Blade is a wildly fun action game, with weighty and flashy melee combat, and an absolutely sublime soundtrack too. It was easily one of the best releases for PS5 last year. I'm glad it's going to be available to more people now that it's coming to PC. I'm not too interested in a replay of the game currently, but I'll for sure be picking it up on PC at some point, as I'll eventually want to revisit it in the future, and to see the new content that's been added, and being added, to the game with this new release. 5 days on from Stellar Blade's PC debut, the gaming trilogy to Indal Trilogies returns, remastered and renewed for modern platforms with the launch of the Gex Trilogy. Not gonna lie, pretty much any interest I have in this one is down to meme value, courtesy of one Scott of the Wozniak variety. Who knows though, I may end up really enjoying these games when I get around to trying them, but it's not exactly high on my priority list, especially considering I'd want to get a physical copy of this collection, which is being handled as a limited run release, meaning I wouldn't really be able to play the Funny Lizard games in question until sometime later this year, when physical copies are sent out. If you're interested in some Golden Age 3D mascot platformer nostalgia though, this is the trilogy of games for you, and it will be out on all modern platforms and PC. The next day, Date Everything will finally be unleashed, after seeing a delay from February 14th to June 17th. I went over this one back in my Reds radar for February, but the TLDW is that this is going to be one weird visual novel, with you being able to explore your in-game house, and, as the title suggests, date everything, as pretty much all your household objects and appliances come to life and are looking for romance. Outside of the bizarre concept, I think another big draw of this one is the absolutely star-studded cast of voice actors, as there's tons of heavy hitters from the industry lending their talents to the numerous characters in this game, and it should be fun to listen in and see if any of your favorites are playing a role or two. This one will be out on consoles and PC. Moving back into grimdark territory, June 23rd will see the release of the Arbitus class DLC for Warhammer 40k Darktide. Darktide remains one of my favorite co-op games to play every now and then, with its top-tier first-person melee combat and gunplay, in addition to an amazing soundtrack and overall stellar presentation. After much speculation, the game will finally be getting a whole new class to play as, that being the Arbitus. While I don't really know too much about who these enforcers are, or what their overall lore and purpose is in the grander scheme of 40k, they look to bring some seriously heavy-hitting weaponry to the table, alongside having a canine companion that's more than happy to help you tear through some heretical flesh in the hive city of Tertium. And just 3 days after the Arbitus comes to Darktide, Space Marine 2 will finally be receiving its promised Horde mode in a free update on June 26, officially known as Siege mode. This one's pretty straightforward. It's you, your 2 battle brothers of choice, and endless waves of tyrannid filth to slaughter. The standard PvE found in the game's story mode and operations is already fantastically fun, but having a more unfocused, just get to the point battle mode where you can just zone out and fight off enemies for as long as you can hold out for with your friends is going to make for a great experience. And I foresee myself spending lots of time in Space Marine 2 again very soon. The goodies don't stop with Space Marine 2 though, as the 26th will also bring with it 2 very big releases that I feel are worth mentioning, even though I'm personally a bit conflicted about them. Those being Death Stranding 2, On the Beach for PlayStation 5, and the Western release of Persona 5, The Phantom X, which will be playable on mobile devices and PC. On the Death Stranding side of things, it's a series I have mixed feelings on. On one hand, I find the world, story, and characters all incredibly fascinating, but on the other hand, the game itself wasn't exactly my cup of tea when I first played it, and I've still yet to finish it fully. I think I just need to go back and really give the first game another go, and I did never try out the director's cut, so the changes and additions that were made with that release may finally help me stick with it longer, as I'd love to fully experience the original game and perhaps check out the sequel here at some point once I do. For Persona 5X, man, I wish I could be excited about this one, as I love the Persona series, but given that this is a mobile-focused spin-off with tons of predatory monetization and gacha mechanics, well, that pretty much kills any and all interest I had in the game right there. Still, for those who can tolerate those aspects of mobile gaming, I think it's safe to say you're going to be getting a wickedly stylish and incredibly fun turn-based RPG here, with everything you'd want and expect from a game that carries the Persona 5 title. I know it's nothing new at this point, but as someone who doesn't really play mobile games, I'm always still surprised and impressed to see just how high quality a lot of these games can end up being. It's a shame that the aforementioned monetization practices drag them down, but I get it. If it makes all the monies, these kinds of games are going to keep happening. at least I can still enjoy all the new music that'll come out of this one, so there's that, I suppose. That's all I had to say for this honorable mentions category, so I think it's about time we wrap things up here. Alright, well, that's yet another script that ended up being way longer than I figured it was gonna be when I sat down to write it. I mean, I knew the Switch 2's launch and related games were going to be a big part of it, but just like in May, there ended up being so much more releasing this month than I would have thought. And yeah, the Switch 2 and all the games I mentioned with it are for sure the priority for this month, as the only other games that will pull me away from my shiny new handheld are probably going to be FBC Firebreak and the updates for Dark Tide and Space Marine 2. Of course, with those being titles with a heavy focus on co-op, it'll just kind of depend on my friends' availability, in addition to my own, so overall most of my time will probably still be spent on the Switch 2 for the month. I mentioned it previously, but I plan to do some coverage on the Switch 2, and at least some of the games I get with it around launch, so for sure keep an eye out on the channel for when those release. Keep in mind though, that the launch is going to be happening right alongside a lot of the big summer gaming showcases, which I'll also probably want to cover as well, but I'll do the best I can to get any and all coverage out in a timely manner. All combined though, with new hardware launching, plenty of new standalone game releases, and tons of exciting news and reveals, June is shaping up to be an absolute amazing time to be a fan of video games. But with all that being said, I think that'll do it for this video. If you made it to the end, I thank you for watching. Your continued viewership and support is greatly appreciated. I hope I was able to entertain, inform, and perhaps interest you in some new games to check out for yourself. And last, but certainly not least, as always, I'll see you next time.